Good morning, everybody. It is the Friday after Thanksgiving. I hope everyone had a fantastic day celebrating yesterday with your family or loved ones or friends, whoever you may have been celebrating yesterday's holiday with. Uh, Coming today for our post game episode, the recap of the Thanksgiving Day game, the early game that was played between the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. And kudos to the Lions. Said there was I sort of laid out the way that I felt they could win that game. Um, they didn't win, but 28-25 final score there. The Bills having to win on with a field goal with 2 seconds left to break the tie. I think that game went. Again, it wasn't a win, so it wasn't the best case scenario for the Lions, but certainly showed that they could hold their own against one of the best teams in the NFL. So sad to see the win streak come to an end for the Lions, but they still played well in that game. And I think if they were playing a team that wasn't as good as the Buffalo Bills, I think they could have overcome the mistakes they did have in the game and gotten a victory there. It's just the Bills are a little bit better of a team, and it's harder to overcome that stuff when you're playing a team that's more talented. I got to give a shout out to Dennis Marshall, who did comment on yesterday's video about taking the Lions and the points, because if you took the points and the Lions in that game, they did cover. I pointed out that since 1990, and this was a stat that I heard on 97.1 The Ticket, was that the Lions were 3-8 straight up in games and 7-14 against the spread as underdogs on Thanksgiving since 1990. So they overall have struggled to from a betting perspective to cover there. But if you took the Lions and the points yesterday, you were happy because I want to say it was like a 9.5 was the spread. So a 3 point Bills victory. The Lions covered there. And so something they don't always do as an underdog on Thanksgiving. So shout out to Dennis Marshall there. Good call by him saying take the Lions and the points. Let's talk about the game now a little bit and talk about why the loss happened. As I mentioned, they did have a couple of miscues. They had the missed field goal. They had two fumbles lost. And really in the games, the 3-game winning streak they were on, we mentioned they had a +7 turnover differential, and that was really contributing to their victories. If you can take care of the ball and force the enemy team into making mistakes, you're going to have a good time. And the Bills did throw one interception. Josh Allen did have one INT in the game, but one interception versus two fumbles lost. In the end, those fumbles being lost and that missed field goal, those are three mistakes that really cost the Lions. They won the penalty battle. There were 5 flags on the Bills, 3 on the Lions, but they also had an inopportune penalty as well that helped keep the Bills' drive going. So, those mistakes when you're playing a team that is, I think, more talented, like I said, than you, really hard to overcome that. And so, kudos to the Lions. They tied the game up. They certainly had a chance to take it into overtime and potentially from there get a win. But when they got the ball back, and they had it in decent field position. I had said, there's no Jeff Okuda to cover Stephon Diggs, and then sure enough, Josh Allen tosses it to Stephon Diggs to get them pretty much into field goal range. I think they ran one more play and then clocked it. Um, and it just it was sort of Stephon Diggs had one touchdown earlier in the game. He didn't have a huge game. Monroe St. Brown had a statistically in a fantasy bigger day than Stephon Diggs did, but it ended up that catch ended up winning the game for the Bills. And just unfortunate, you saw him run right by Harris, and Joseph tried to step up and make a play on the ball, but uh, the rookie was unable there to get in front of Stephon Diggs and break it up. So, unfortunate for the Lions. It doesn't not a not a nail in the coffin by any means for them. They still have a chance here. Again, I'm not expecting them to make the playoffs. The Vikings got their win against the Patriots, so I definitely think the Vikings are going to be the NFC North representative. They haven't clinched the division just yet, but I think it's unrealistic to think that the Lions will catch them. But if we come here and we take a look at the playoff picture, let me go ahead and just get this shared here for everybody. So if we come here and we take a look, you can see we'll take a look at the NFC side of the brackets. Well, both the AFC and the NFC, and this is according to the NFL.com right now. All 7 spots are currently available. Of course, they expanded the playoffs to include a third wild card last year team, and that's coming back this year. So you can see currently we got the Eagles in the NFC leading the way at 9-1. The Vikings with that win over the Patriots now 9-2 and first in the NFC North. The Niners currently sitting in first place in the NFC West. Tampa Bay, first place in the NFC South. So those are your top 4 seeds. Now taking a look at the wild card race, you got the Cowboys now, who just improved to 8-3. The Giants, who are on a 2-game losing streak, sitting at 7-4, and then the Seattle Seahawks, who are coming off a bye, sitting at 6-4. This is Deku. He says hello. He's getting asked to leave the premises. There you go, Deku. But so you got 8-3, 7-4, 6-4, and then if we take a look here at the on the bubble teams, you can see Washington is currently that next team or is that first team out. They're sitting at 6-5. Then you have the Falcons at 5-6, and these two teams are playing each other. And then you have the Lions and a host of other teams sitting here at 4-7. So it's not the craziest thing in the world to say, hey, maybe the Lions can go ahead and end up in the playoffs. As a wild card team, if they can win the remainder of their games, they certainly have a chance. But it's if they had won out, they would definitely have a stronger case. Now, if we take a look at the remainder of their schedule, we got the Bills and Lions here. But if we take a look here at the remainder of their schedule, probably their biggest challenge left on the season is this December 11th matchup with the Vikings. This game is being played in Ford Field. They did play earlier this year. Come back up here. It was a close game. They only lost by 4 points, but that game was in Minnesota. So, obviously the Vikings right now are the front runner in the NFC North. They're playing very well. They rebounded after that being destroyed by Dallas last week. Rebounded here against the Patriots, who are also a good defense. So, it, I think that speaks to a good rebound there. It would be something if they were playing a team that isn't very good on defense, but the fact, they played the Cowboys who were really good at defense. They really handled them and then were able to get a win against the Patriots, who are no slouches when it comes to defense. We saw what they did last week to the Jets. I think that's a quality win. But perhaps with the venue changing to Ford Field, the Lions having home field advantage, they typically have played better at home this season. Perhaps they can get a win against the Vikings, but that's I think realistically to have a shot as a wild card team, a realistic shot, they do need to win out the remainder of their games. And I really think the hardest game remaining in the schedule is that December 11th matchup with the Vikings. Of course, I also have the Jaguars here, the Jets, who have made the switch to Mike White. The Panthers, that should be a pretty easy win. They're also playing the Bears at home, should be a win. And then they have to travel to Lambeau to take on the Packers, a place where they have historically struggled, But again, I think I would favor them in that game because the Packers just look awful on offense and defense. Um, so even though it is a place the Lions historically have struggled, I, I'm hoping that they can get a victory there against the Packers. But that Vikings game, December 11th, I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle remaining in their season in terms of being able to really compete for a wild card spot in the NFC playoffs. And again, I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but that's just sort of what taking a look at that NFL, the playoff picture. It just seems like that's what it is. Like for them to have a chance, I think they need to win out. In that game against the Vikings, I think is going to be the one that could really decide whether or not they have a legitimate chance at challenging for the playoffs or not. Of course, they do have to win these other games. Again, the Jaguars, the Jets, even like the Bears. They were able to come back in that game at the Soldier Field and get the win against the Bears. But if Justin Fields is healthy, not an easy task at all. So um, we'll see. We'll see. They have 6 games left. If they can win all 6 and improve their record to 10-7, I definitely think they'll be right there in the hunt. But we'll have to see what they can do because it's like not an easy road. It's not the hardest road that exists, but it's not without challenge. So we'll have to see what the Lions can do in upcoming weeks. All right. Well, just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, I had picked the Bills to win this game. The Bills did win, but the game was a lot closer than I thought. The Lions, if it weren't for a few mistakes, really could have turned this into a W, and that really would have helped for that playoff push. But still, they're not out of it. They're still very much one of those teams in the hunt. And the way they've been playing the last 4 weeks, even with this loss, definitely consider them they do have a chance if they can continue the level of play that we've seen from them. So we'll have to see next week. Their next game is against Jacksonville. They will be hosting them at Ford Field. I think a game the Lions should be favored in. But Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, that Jaguars team, not they haven't fully rebounded, but they have shown signs of the season of improvement. And certainly, I think it'll be a good game as the two teams square off, but one hopefully where we'll see a Lions victory. All right. This has been the Lions Grid. I'm Kevin Marheine. We're coming live to you as always on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Feel free to, on whichever platform is your favorite, to search for the Lions Grid. You should be able to find our profiles. Make sure you give a like, follow, and interact with our content if you're enjoying the show. It helps us out and helps the show grow, and we really appreciate that support. Again, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope you had a fantastic holiday yesterday, and we'll catch you next week as we do the pregame episode for the Jacksonville Detroit Lions game in Week 13. I'm Kevin Marheine. We'll catch you later.